For the chat app that we're building, I had to learn how to access the contacts on the user's phone. Now this turned out to be way easier than I thought it would be. So this is what I'm going to show you how to do in this tutorial. Now before we dive in, I just want to give a quick reminder that we do have a Code with Chris ideas board. The link to that is in the description below. Using this ideas board, you can vote on topics that you'd like to see or suggest ideas of your own. All right, with that said, let's dive in. So here I've got a brand new Xcode project, and the first thing we're going to do is import the contacts framework. Now let me just bring up the documentation page for this framework from Apple. And this contacts framework is basically interacting with the address book and grabbing all of the user's contact information. It's actually very easy to use. So I'll show you both how to grab all of the contacts and how to then parse out the contact information for specific data like phone numbers or email addresses and names, things like that. I'll show you all the keys that are available to get, and also how to fetch specific contacts based on maybe a specific phone number, a specific name, or a specific email. First of all, let's import this contacts framework so we can start working with it. So import contacts, not contacts UI, just contacts. And this basic project just has that hello world text label. What I'm going to do is create another method down here called fetch all contacts, and we are going to call this method when this text label appears. So on appear, I'm just going to perform fetch all contacts. Now here's what we're going to have to do. So let me add a reminder to ourselves first. We're going to have to run this in the background asynchronously because we don't want it to block the UI. So fetching contacts, it has to be done as a background task so that there is no telling, for example, how many contacts the user has. It could be a lengthy operation. So we need to run it in the background. Second of all, we need to get access to the contacts store. And then we need to specify which data keys we want to fetch. Okay, so let's run through this. Looks like a lot, but it's actually very easy. So we're going to declare a new constant called store, and we are going to create a new instance of CNContactStore. And through this contact store, we can call method to fetch all contacts, and this method is called enumerate contacts with and then you pass in what data fields that you want from your contacts. So do you want the name, do you want the phone number, do you want the email, because you don't want to fetch all the information. So you can specify which pieces of information you want, and then using block, this allows you to specify a block of code that is run for every contact that gets fetched. So then you can save that information into your own array, you can display it on the screen, you can do anything you want. And the last thing to notice is that this potentially could throw an error. Let's say that the user hasn't given you permission to access their contacts. That would throw an error. Okay, so we need to call this method, and we're going to need to pass in that fetch request, which is where we specify the data keys that we want. And then here is where we specify that closure, that block of code that we run for each contact. First of all, let's put this in a do catch block for error handling purposes, because remember, this could potentially throw an error. So what we need to do is add the try keyword in front of it and also wrap this in a do catch block. So if there was an error, execution or handle it here. Now we're sort of going to go backwards. We're going to go up and we're going to take a look at how we're going to create this contact fetch request. So let fetch request equals, it's a CNContactFetchRequest. In order to create this, you just have to pass in the keys that you want to fetch. And this is an array of CN key descriptor. Now, below this video, you're going to find a list of keys that you can fetch. So I'll link to this page called Contact Keys, and you can fetch all of these different pieces of data associated with each contact. So for example, given name is, I believe it's their full name, if I'm not mistaken. It might be their first name. Actually, sorry, this is the first name. This is the last name and middle name. And then this is like Mr., Mrs., Miss, that sort of thing. And there's also, like there's addresses, there's phone, there's, all the data you see in your own iPhone address book. So we're going to specify, let's say, given name for the first name, and we're also, that's right here. We're also going to specify the phone number. Phone number, there we go, phone numbers key. Now, it's going to fetch all the phone numbers. So you potentially have maybe a mobile number, a work number, all of that is going to be fetched. So you can only specify that you want phone numbers. You can't specify like which specific phone number you want. So we're going to create an array right here for this, the keys that we want to fetch. So let keys equals CNContact given name key, and also CNContact phone numbers key. And notice that the keys that I'm specifying here, these are actually strings. Oops, I just clicked that one. These are actually strings right here. However, what we need to pass in here is an array of CN key descriptor. So it's basically the same thing. You just need to cast this as a CN key descriptor array. And then you can pass your keys right into the fetch request. So I know we sort of went backwards, but let's just recap what we've done here. We've created a contacts store, which is sort of our entry point into grabbing all the data we need. We created an array of keys. This is the data that we want to fetch for each contact. And then we pass that into a fetch request, which this object we're going to pass into this method called enumerate contacts. And this method is called on the contact store that we created up here. So let's go ahead and put in our fetch request. And let's double click this block right here to open up a closure so that we can write the code that we want to execute for each contact that is fetched. So let's double click that. This is the actual contact. And this, I don't know what this parameter is used for, to be honest. I tried to check the documentation, didn't really tell me much, and I ended up not having to use this. So I think this is success or failure, I believe, because it's a Boolean. So anyways, I'm going to call this parameter contact because that is the main thing we need. I'm going to call this result. And in here, I'm going to do something with the contact. For now, let's just print out contact.givenName. Okay, and then we'll just print error right there. Okay, now before we run this, however, before we run this, we're going to need to ask permission from the user in order to fetch, essentially run this line of code. At the point you're trying to access the contacts, it's going to check if you have permission. I'm going to run this app without asking for permission just so you can see what happens. Okay, so you see a crash. You'll see that this app has crashed because it's attempted to access privacy-sensitive data without a usage description. The info.plist must contain an NSContacts usage description key with a string value explaining to the user how the app uses this data. So you can go ahead and copy and paste that, or I'll show you how to type it out. So let's go into the info.plist. So if you're using an older version of Xcode, you might see that here. This is Xcode 13, so I'm going to go up to the app here. And if you click your target, switch over to info right here, and you're going to see your essentially info.plist right here. You're going to click the plus icon on the last row, and you're going to type in capital P and then lowercase I. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on. Let me do that here. Okay, capital P, R-I, privacy, right? And then you can search for privacy-contacts usage description. That's what we need. And we're going to need to fill in a reason. Now, alternatively, you could just copy this NSContacts usage description, and you could simply paste that here, and you'll see that it actually knows what you're referring to. Now let's add, let's say, I don't know, reason for accessing contacts. You're going to have to do better than that though for your app. Okay, so let's run it now and see what we get. Oh, sorry. So, okay, this is what happens when you're not running that contact fetch request in the background. So I did mention that we had to do that. You can see it pop up now. I don't really want to answer this now, but I've sort of, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna delete it and we'll try that again. I'll show you how to do it in the background using async and await, the new asynchronous, way to do things. So what we have to do is label this method as async because we want to run it in the background. And then if you try to build this, you might see something like, okay, it's failed. Trying to build this async call in a function that does not support concurrency. So when this happens, we're going to create a new task init like that. And async is always matched with await, right? So we're going to put the await keyword in front of our async method. When you do that, you're essentially going to be running this in the background. Okay, so let's run our app again. And this time should work as expected. All right, so the text hello world has appeared, and then we are getting this request, and here's reason for accessing contacts. I'm going to click OK, and then later I'll show you what happens when you click don't allow and how to mitigate that. So let's click OK, and you'll see here it's printed out all our contacts. I realized I didn't show you the contacts on the simulator. So we have these people right here, and you can see it matches that in no particular order, and some of these people have multiple phone numbers. All right, so let's print out some information. So if I, let's just print a contact itself. And remember that we fetched the given name, see family name, these data, we didn't specify it in the keys that we want to fetch, so it's not fetched. However, we did fetch phone numbers, right? And phone numbers, like I told you, there's multiple phone numbers, so this is actually an array of all of the different phone numbers. So let's print out contact.givenName, and then we are going to loop through the phone numbers of the contact. So for number in contact.phonenumbers, we are going to print out the number. Actually, let's print out, let's indent it so then we can see. All right, see what we get. Okay, so we have Kate, and then we have dash, and this is the phone number. Now, each phone number has two pieces of data. It has a label and it has a string value. You can see the string value is the actual number, whereas the label is basically the mobile number, the work number, and whatnot. But this label is not really meant to be shown like that. So for example, if I said number.label, maybe colon number.string value, sorry, it has value. So this is a little confusing right here because this is the phone number and it has a label property and then a value property. The value is a CN phone number where the string value of that is the actual phone number. So it's actually value.string value. That's how we're going to access the phone number. Oh, I'm missing a bracket. So let's give that a try. All right, so you'll see we now have like mobile and then phone number, main and then phone number. But as I said, this label isn't really meant to be shown as is because it contains all of these characters and things like that. So sort of what we're supposed to do instead is we can do a switch on the number.label, and then we can just compare it. I mean, this is a bunch of extra work that we have to do, but that's the way it is. So CN contact phone sorry, I think it's CN labeled label phone number. Yeah, here it is. CN label phone number mobile. So if the label is equal to that, then we are going to print mobile number.value.string value. Another case is CN label phone number, let's say work. Phone number, there is a work, right? Work fax. Home fax, main. I guess there's no work label. So we'll do main, print main number.value.string value. And then we always have to have a default with a switch statement. So we just print other number.value.string value. Okay, so this is how we're going to display that instead of what we had before. So now we have a switch statement. Okay, so let's run this again. All right, so now you have, the given name, and then we're looping through the phone numbers, and if the phone number label matches mobile, then we're printing mobile. If it matches main, then we're printing main, and so on. So that's how you're going to get your nicely formatted phone numbers. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to search for specific contacts. So let's stop this, and we're going to create a brand new method. Fetch specific contacts. So this is going to be async again, and this time we're going to call fetch specific contacts. So again, run this in the background, get access to the contacts store. So let store equals CNContactStore. But now I want to show you what method we call. So store.unifiedContactsMatching. So we're going to be able to specify what's called a predicate here, where we can search by, like, let's say first name or whatnot. And then it also has a keys to fetch, which you've already seen. And lastly, notice that it also throws. So let's create the predicate and let's create the keys to fetch first. So let keys equal CN contact given name key, CN contact phone numbers key. That's it. And for some reason that method doesn't require the keys as an array of key descriptors, so we don't have to use this as CN key descriptor as we had here. So let predicate equals, and we can create a special predicate, contact.predicate, as a type method off of the CNContact class. So here you have a couple of different things you can do, right? Matching name, matching email address, matching like a specific phone number. If you have an ID, you could do here. We're going to do this matching. I'm just going to specify Kate. See if we can get something from that. Okay, so let store.unifiedContactsMatching. We're going to pass in our predicate. We're going to pass in our keys. Oh, actually, this is a CN key descriptor, so my bad. I thought I didn't need to do that before. We'll see if it works, because I felt like I didn't cast that as a CN key descriptor like what we did here before, and it still worked. So we're going to have to do this in a do catch block. Okay, keys to fetch, search criteria, perform fetch. Okay, so we are going to say let contacts equals that. Expected, oh, okay. I don't know what I was thinking. So CN key descriptor, here we go. Okay, let's build this. Everything looks good. And then I'm just going to print out contacts that were fetched. Okay, and this should be okay. So let's give this a run. Okay, so it's done something. Yeah, so who did it find here? Yeah, so it found Kate. And then the phone numbers. You know, for example, we could search by anything, but that's just the basic example of how to perform a specific fetch. Now I want to show you what happens if the user denies. You'll notice that every time I've launched it, I haven't been asked for permission again. That's because it remembers what the user has chosen before. So if we delete the app, right, and we do this again, yes, delete it. If the user denies, I'll show you what happens. Don't allow. You get an error, access contacts denied with error, access denied. Permission has not been granted to access the contacts. The thing is, if I run this app again, it doesn't even ask the user again. It just remembers that the user denied it. Now, at what point do you get this error and how do you handle it? It happens, let's put a breakpoint right there so we can walk through it together. Okay, so there it is. We can create the contact store. We can create the keys, the predicate. At this point, when we call this method on the store, that's when we jump down here. All right, so in your production app, if the user had not allowed it, and you catch this error and you notice that it's this sort of access denied error, then you can show the appropriate message to the user to say like, hey, you know, you denied it before. In order to grant us permission, go to the settings, and they're gonna have to manually switch it. So they're gonna have to essentially go to settings. I think there's privacy, and then there's like you should be able to access your specific app. I can't exactly remember where it is. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So you can see that I was doing this for the chat app, but see, this is denied because the user denied it. So they're gonna just have to toggle that on. And once they do that, if we run the app again, now go through the same ordeal, and we're able to grab the contact this time. It doesn't even ask the user because they've allowed it in their settings. So that's how simple it is to use the Apple Contacts framework. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any specific questions about this, do feel free to post in our Code Crew forum, and someone from the team or myself will jump in to help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.